13 races down, 9 to go, and the points table suggests that the 2022 Formula 1 season is moving in the path of Max Verstappen and Red Bull. But how great of a chance did Ferrari miss, and more crucially, is there still time to turn things around? Red Bull and a completely revitalized Ferrari have been in a close battle during the first half of the season. Both teams have seen some reliability issues, but Ferrari has consistently fallen over itself. Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc's competition revolves around who executes their strategy well on any given weekend, but Ferrari has made things difficult for the young Monegasque driver. This has left Ferrari disappointed throughout the season, and many people are calling for changes within the organisation. And now, a former Ferrari chief has come out and stated whose head is supposed to roll. Who? Watch the video until the end and you'll find out. Do you think Ferrari could have been on top of the charts if they didn't have to deal with all the strategy errors? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Let's take a look at the scale of which Ferrari has underachieved this year. Red Bull has conducted itself in a regular, professional manner and has looked everywhere. The RB18 has proven a car for all circuits, despite a few retirements. Most notably, the fuel cavitation issue that caused both cars to fail in Bahrain and Verstappen's fuel line damage in Australia. But Ferrari is right up there and has typically had the advantage when it comes to pure car performance, winning 8 out of 13 pole positions. Let's examine the data in more detail. The Super Times technique averages throughout the entire season the fastest single lap for each team on each weekend, measured as a percentage of the absolute fastest. Accordingly, each of the 13 events is equally weighted, with a best-case scenario average of 100% only being feasible in the improbable event that one team was quickest every weekend. The best and worst results for each team are also provided, along with the difference between them. The goal is obviously to get as high up this chart as you can, but you need the right equipment to do it. As a race team, your only option is to maximize the potential of the materials provided to you every weekend. The delta column is a crucial indicator of how well you did in doing that. By reducing the randomness in this situation, your race team will know what to do with a fast car that your design team builds one day. Yes, it can merely be attributed to one bad weekend versus one fantastic weekend, but this indicates that Aston Martin and Hassan especially need to focus on consistency. And Ferrari is of course topping the charts with the fastest car. However, we can also add some other data to this analysis. This year, there have been 10 dry qualifying sessions and 3 wet ones, with Imola, Canada and Britain being the 3 wet ones. Only the times from Q1 are utilised for the next set of data. That's because we're sure that the 20 cars are all on the circuit at the same time and under the same track conditions. The data may be skewed to make the cars that make it to Q3 appear considerably more competitive than those that are eliminated in Q1 or Q2, as the track becomes more rubberized during qualifying. Any set of data is incomplete, so even if the fastest cars may not have driven as hard or even finished the 2 runs in Q1, this still yields some intriguing results, such as Ferrari again being the fastest car on the grid, but the Red Bull is not far off their pace. The performance of a car in genuine dry conditions is better represented by the first column above. Yes, the teams at the back give it their all to advanced, whilst the ones at the front are likely a little more reserved. However, it does demonstrate that the men in the back are still performing effectively. Each squad's performance in the wet is shown in the second column, along with the position of the team. Red Bull is the only team that performs better in wet conditions compared to the other teams, which indicates that the team's grasp of how to best optimize the car for wet conditions, or at the very least the car itself, is quite good. The distinction is in the third column. The Mercedes drop down is really fairly big, which is surprising. The larger diameter rear wet tyres should help with its bouncing and porpoising issues, and its drivers typically do admirably in those kinds of conditions. Perhaps the purpose of this article is to simply demonstrate how some vehicles, like the Mercedes, require an extremely stiff suspension setup in order to minimize porpoising. In the rain, that has never been a good thing. The number of factors at play makes it more challenging to compare performance pace to race pace. But to compare this data, Motorsport created the first F1 car past the post championship to contrast outright performance against race performance. It allocates points based on performance, giving out 25 for the quickest and 1 for the slowest in the current championship system. So we can compare the quickest lap from Q1 when everyone's goal is somewhat identical, which is the first column, to the same points awarded depending on the first car from each team to cross the finish line in the race. And is this metric, it's clear to see that Ferrari is dropping off, whilst Red Bull and Mercedes are picking up the scraps. Even if you have the fastest car, race day is when you get paid, so it's foolish of Ferrari to enter each race weekend with no awareness of the events that cost them significant points in the prior races. It is illogical to claim that performance is the only factor, and that dependability and race strategy are irrelevant. Ferrari needs to acknowledge the obvious. Despite winning 4 races this year, the team has been the season's largest underperformer in terms of car pace, relative to race results. If it ever hopes to win a title again, that must change right away. It has 9 races to demonstrate its mastery of race weekend execution and attempt to recover at least some championship points. Otherwise, it could mean that Maranello will start butchering heads. And the conclusion is that in 2022, Ferrari's car appears to be more powerful than Red Bull Racing's. The team has fallen behind in both championships though, due to mistakes on the track and in the pit lane. Cesar Fiorio, a former director of sports for Ferrari, is aware of who needs to be fired, and he isn't afraid to hold back on his comments. Fiorio asserts that the present Ferrari is no longer sustainable. Too many crucial details have been overlooked because of careless errors and bad strategy. The Italians seem to have had enough after the most recent Formula 1 race in Hungary. In a weekend where they were the favourites, Ferrari suffered severe defeats at the hands of Max Verstappen and both Mercedes drivers. Fiorio contends that Ferrari's present lineup must be altered. The drivers are safe from the former Ferrari chief and, surprisingly enough, also the team boss Mattia Binotto. The Italian told the media, "Mattia was originally an engineer, and he knows how to do that job very well, as evidenced by the creation of the F175. In his staff, Binotto needs people who are better suited to the Ferrari culture. Binotto needs to stay in place, but Iñaki Rueda does not. He has never positively influenced the different teams he's ever worked for." Fiorio is confident that he has identified the error maker and can identify him as being Ferrari strategist Rueda. Fiorio believes that human intuition is Ferrari's worst weakness. The Italian believes that the current team is unable to act quickly when it is truly necessary. Instead, the group is overly reliant on the computer data and mathematical models. In a race, you often have only a few seconds in which to make a decision. Then you don't have time to analyze dozens of models, manage computers, and communicate remotely with the factory. Ferrari lacks the personal intuition, said Fiorio. Even though Ferrari's strategy decisions have come under scrutiny at times during this Formula 1 season, team chief Mattia Binotto is optimistic about the situation. In fact, he stands strong in defense of his strategy division and is unmistakably confident that he has the right people in the appropriate positions, despite admitting there is always space for improvement. Binotto acknowledges that Ferrari can improve and that lessons have been learned. He claims that improving things is a far cry from assuming that Ferrari's strategy is fundamentally flawed, because there have been instances in which Ferrari has defeated Red Bull by making superior tyre calls during a race. "I think there's always a way of improving ourselves," he said in an exclusive interview. "You cannot be perfect, and you will never be perfect. So no doubt we need to improve ourselves on the aero, chassis, power unit, on strategy, or whatever we can." If you look at our strategy team, sometimes they are doing even great things, even greater than the others. We had the right strategy in Austria and the others not. We had probably the best strategy in France before the mistakes of Charles. And I think that's showing. We have been brave enough in France to bring 2 mediums in the race when the others had hards. To do that, you need to be not only strong, but brave. So overall, we've got a good team, and I do not think that is a weakness to us. But having said that, I think I've got a great team on the strategy, and I do not feel it's a weakness. What are your thoughts about Ferrari's season so far? Are they able to turn things around after the summer break? Let us know in the comments below. We love reading your opinions. And that's all for today. Be sure to like the video if you've enjoyed it and subscribe for more of our content.